Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
I'm Rabbi Aviva Bass.
And I'm Cantor Jake Harris.
And we are here from Delray Beach, Florida, Temple Sinai of Palm Beach County. And we're so happy to be here with you tonight. So if you have Shabbat candles and would like to light with me, please do so now. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner Shel Shabbat. Amen. Shabbat Shalom. And now Cantor Jake will lead us in some singing and the Kiddush.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Aviva. So we are actually going to start off, since we just had a beautiful blessing for the candles, we're going to go right into the Kiddush. So if you're following along with us, go ahead and raise up your glass or whatever grape-colored liquid. If it's wine, if it's grape juice, all good. Either way, hopefully we've got some of our students watching tonight because it is Passover this weekend. 122 is the page, folks. And here we go for the Kiddush. ויהי ערב ויבוקר יום השישי, ויחולו השמיים והארץ, וכל צבאם, ויכל אלוהים ביום השביעי מלאכתו אשר עשה. וישבות ביום השביעי מכל מלאכתו אשר עשה, ויברך אלוהים את יום השביעי, ויקדש אותו. כי בו שבת מכל מלאכתו אשר ברא אלוהים לעשות. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, בורא פרי הגפן. אמן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר קידשנו במצוותיו ורצבנו, ושבת קודשו באהבה וברצון הנחיל לנו, זיכרון למעשה וראשית. כי הוא יום תחילה למקרא קודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים. כי בנו בחרת, ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים, ושבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת. אמן. לחיים. Oh. Wow. That is a great feeling, folks. Not only is it Shabbat, but tomorrow begins our celebration of Passover. So I thought it would be appropriate, Rabbi Aviva and I thought it would be appropriate to share a little bit of Passover music throughout tonight's service, just as a taste, so that we can get into the mood. So we're going to start off now with Adir Hu, and this one is not in your prayer books, but if you can get part of the words or even just sing Yai Dai Dai on it, we're going to get into the spirit of Passover with this one. So here we go. Adir hu, yivnei veto bekarov, bimheira, beyameinu bekarov, el b'nei בקרוב. בחור הוא, גדול הוא, דגול הוא, יבנה ביתו בקרוב. במהרה, במהרה, בימינו בקרוב. אל בני ביתך בקרוב. Starting off with Hadar Hu, and we got to pick up the pace if we got to get all these words into Adir Hu. So here we go. Hador Hu, Vatik Hu, Zakai Hu, Chasid Hu, Yivne Veto Bekarov. Bimheira, Bimheira, Beyamenu Bekarov. El B'nai, B'nai Veitcha Bekarov. Just another Adir Hu right at the top. Let's sing if you know it. Adir Hu, Adir Hu, Yivnei Veito Bekarov. Bimheira, Bimheira, Beyamenu Bekarov. El B'nai, B'nai Veitcha Bekarov. So if you want the rest of those words, folks, you're just going to have to tune in tomorrow for the Seder. Hope to see you there.
Thank you, Jake. So, yes, this is actually Shabbat Hagadol. This is the Great Shabbat, it is called. The Shabbat before Pesach. And so we're in kind of a liminal time, a liminal space between the time of Chametz, when we are permitted to eat leavened products, and the time that we are not, when the Chag starts tomorrow evening. I don't know about you, but tonight's Shabbat dinner for me after the service will consist of pizza. And that will be a wonderful Shabbat dinner for me as my last pizza before the holiday. As the service goes on a little bit later, I will discuss the differences between matzah and chametz, or chametz and matzah, as we go into this transition. So we start tonight with a few announcements besides the fact that it is Shabbat HaGadol. We also have some announcements about our sponsorships this evening. Tonight's Erev Shabbat service is sponsored by Rosie Sapidin in memory of her mother, Renee Altervain, Robert Orr in memory of his mother, Pat Orr, and our Saturday, March 27th, Shabbat Torah study tomorrow is sponsored by Robert Orr in memory of his mother, Pat Orr. Zichronam Livracha. The following donations to the community food pantries are sponsored by Sherry Katz in honor of Andy and Seth Dinsky, Diane Johnson in memory of her aunt, Rose Carson, Zichrona Livracha, and Belle Brody, thanking everyone for being so nice. And this is a wonderful community. So thank you, Belle. Thank you all. And thank you for all of these sponsorships and donations. They really help our community to keep going. So we're going to start our service now, and we're starting with the quintessential song of Kabbalat Shabbat, Lecha Dodi, and that is on page 138. And I invite Cantor Jake to lead us, but please join him in singing Lecha Dodi, page 138.
For those who are longtime Temple Sinai members, yes, what you expected. 1, 2, 5, and 9 are the verses that we are going to be singing tonight. If you're new to Temple Sinai, that's what we like to explore in Lecha Dodi. So I hope that you'll sing along wherever you're at. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nekabela. שמור וזכור בדיבור אחד השמיענו אל המיוחד אדוני אחד ושמו אחד לשם ולתפארת ולתהילה לך דודי לקראת קהלה פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת קהלה פני שבת נקבלה. Verse 2 לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה כי היא מקור הברכה מראש וכרם נסוכה סוף מעשה במחשבה תהילה לך דודי לקראת קהלה פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת קהלה פני שבת נקבלה. התעוררי התעוררי כי באורך קומי אורי 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 שיר דברי כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה לך דודי לקראת קהלה פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת קהלה פני שבת נקבלה. בואי ושלום עטרת פלגה משמחה ובצהלה תוך אמונה עם סגולה. בואי חלה בואי חלה לך דודי לקראת קהלה פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת קהלה פני שבת נקבלה. Now, for the formal call to worship, we turn now to 146, page 146, if you're following along in a prayer book. And the question that I always ask myself entering in prayer is, I'm ready? Am I ready? Am I awake? Am I prepared? Are you listening to my prayer? Can you hear my voice? Can you understand? Am I awake? Am I prepared? Baruchu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam va'ed. Le'olam va'ed. Sing it now. Yada die die die. 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 If you were standing this whole time, please take a seat, and if not, I hope that you are even more comfortable than you were before. So Rabbi V was talking about having pizza. Wow, that really got me thinking. I need to eat as much bread as possible tonight before Passover starts. That sounded so delicious, Rabbi Viva. Wow. So as we're now coming to the Ahavat Olam prayer, Passover gives us a moment to think about the things that we really love doing and that maybe in the past in our history weren't able to do so much. So in the times where we weren't as free, we'll get to that freedom a little later in the service. Rabbi Aviv will have some things to say about that, I'm sure. But for right now, let's think about God's love for us with Ahavat Olam on page 150. So Wherever you're at, let's sing for the love of God to us and for each other. Ahavat olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha ahavta, Amcha ahavta. Torah u'mitzvot, chukim u'mishpatim, otanu limadeta, otanu limadeta. Al ken Adonai Eloheinu b'shochbeinu, kumenu nasiach b'chukecha, v'nismach b'divrei toratecha, u'b'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ed. Ki hem chayenu, ve'orech yameinu, uvahem nege yomam v'layla, nege yomam v'layla. Ve'avaktecha al tasir, mimenu le'olamim. Baruch ata Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael, Ohev Amo Yisrael.
So now we come to the statement of God's unity. And if it is your custom to rise for the Shema, we do so now, or just sit a little higher in your seat. And if it is your custom to stay where you are for Shema, because we are to say these words when we lie down, when we rise up, in every position that we can be, then please do that as well. We turn to page 152, and I invite you to join me for Shema. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. If you are standing, please take a seat as we turn to page 154 in our Siddur. If you have your prayer book with you, please join me in the English. You shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. Take to heart these instructions with which I charge you this day. Impress them upon your children. Recite them when you stay at home and when you are away, when you lie down and when you get up. Bind them as a sign upon your hand, and let them serve as a symbol on your forehead. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates.
Thus shall you remember to observe all my commandments and to be holy to your God. I am Adonai your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God, brought you out of the land of Egypt, which we celebrate now. I am Adonai your God. Adonai Elohechem Emet. So the next song, the Mi Chamocha, which you can find on page 158, we sing this every Shabbat. Every time we are praying, the Mi Chamocha comes into our prayers. In the morning, we sing in the second paragraph, Shira Chadashah. It's a different second paragraph, but it's nonetheless the Mi Chamocha. So we sing the Mi Chamocha all year round. But 2 times a year, I feel it much more closely. And those 2 times of the year are on Parshat B'Shalach, the Shabbat, on which we read the Torah portion about crossing the Sea of Reeds, in which the Mi Chamocha is actually found in the Torah. It comes from the Torah itself. And of course, now as we enter Pesach and the festival of our liberation. So with even more gusto, ruach is spirit, and feeling, we turn to page 158 and we join Cantor Jake in singing joyfully the Mi Chamocha.
Sing yai dai dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha neda b'kodesh, Torah tehilot osef elef, Torah tehilot osef elef. Malechutecha ra'u v'necha, חוקי הים לפני משה ומרים, זה אלינו ואמרו, זה אלינו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. Sing it with me now. Yai dai dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai. ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב, וגאלו מעל חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל. And now, page 164. If it's your custom to do so, please rise or just incline yourself that much more directly to the Almighty God for the tefillah. na 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 Adonai. Na 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 Svatai tiftach. Na 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 Ufi agid techilatecha. Na 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 Adonai. Na 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 Svatai tiftach. Na 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 Ufi agid techilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avoteinu ve'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel ve'Elohei Leah. Ha'el hagadol hagibor ve'hanora, El Elyon, gomel chasadim tovim, vekonei hakol, v'zocher chasdei avot v'imahot, umevi geula livnei v'neihem, leman shemo be'ahava, melech ozer u'moshia u'magen. Baruch atah Adonai, magen Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע. משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. Dancing with their timbrels, followed Miriam as she sang a song. Sing a song to the one who is exalted. Miriam and the women danced, they danced the whole night long. And Miriam was a weaver of unique variety. The tapestry she wove, which one we sang our history. With every thread and every strand she crafted her delight. A woman touched with spirit, she dances towards the night. And the women dancing with their timbrels followed Miriam as she sang a song. Sing a song to the one who is exalted. Miriam and the women danced, they danced the whole night long. And Miriam stood upon the shores and gazed across the sea. The wonder of this miracle she soon came to believe. Whoever thought the sea would part with an outstretched hand? We would pass to freedom and match the promised land. And the women dancing with their timbrels followed Miriam as she sang a song. Sing a song to the one who is exalted. Miriam and the women danced, they danced the whole night long. Miriam and the women danced, they danced the whole night long. Miriam and the women danced, they danced the whole night long. All right, so at this point in the service, we are now ready to hear and see a little bit of Torah. So we are going to be reading, I'm going to be reading from Parshat Tzav. So we're going to bring that Torah up on the screen, and for anybody that's out there that wants to be part of this one congregational aliyah, you may rise, and we're going to get the Torah up on the screen, and I will read and translate. So this congregational aliyah is for anyone who would like to be a part of it. Baruch hu et Adonai hamvorach, Baruch Adonai hamvorach leolam vaed, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol hamim, v'natan lanu et torato, Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen. Amen. Vayedaber Adonai el Moshe lemor. Tzav et Aharon v'et banav lemor. Zot Torat haolah. Hiv haolah. Al Mokdah al hamizbeach kol halayla ad haboker ve'esh hamizbeach tukad bo ve'lavash hakohen mido vad umichnaseh vad yilbash al bisaro Ve'herim et hadeshen asher tochal ha'ish et haolah et hamizbeach ve'samo eitzel hamizbeach. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Command Aaron and his sons thus, This is the ritual of the burnt offering. The burnt offering itself shall remain where it is burned upon the altar all night until morning, while the fire on the altar is kept going on it. The priest shall dress in linen raiment with linen breeches next to his body, and he shall take up the ashes to which the fire has reduced the burnt offering on the altar and place them beside the altar. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen.
We've now come to the part of our service. We've now come to the time in our service when we think of those who are in need of healing, of mind, body, spirit, or of all three. So if you are thinking of someone or more than one person who is in need of healing at this time, please say their names aloud now. And so for all those we've named and all those who we will see on the screen, we will sing this Misha Berach. And now we look at the names of those who are in need of healing at this time. Misha Berach, Avotenu, Avraham, Yitzchak, v'Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, v'Leah, hu yevarech, v'yirapeh et hacholim. Misha Berach, Avotenu, Avraham, Yitzchak, v'Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, v'Leah, hu yevarech, v'yirapeh et hacholim. Ana refana la, Ana refana la, Ana refana la, Ana refana la. Misha Berach, Avotenu, Avraham, Yitzchak, v'Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, v'Leah, hu yevarech, v'yirapeh et hacholim. As I mentioned before, tonight is Shabbat Hagadol, and it used to be that rabbis did not always give sermons, not every Shabbat. They gave sermons 2 times of the year, once in preparation for Yom Kippur, on Shabbat Tshuva, and also at this Shabbat, the Shabbat of preparation for Pesach. Now, in olden times, the rabbi would exhort the congregation as to what must be done and how we must remove the chametz from our homes as well as from our spirits. I'm not going to exhort you tonight. I'm not going to reprimand you or tell you what to do. But I would like to show and share with you some of the rules of Pesach, and as you choose to use this information. And I invite you to please join me now as I put this on the screen. Okay, so I am now sharing my screen. I don't often do this, but this screen actually is from a teaching that I've done recently with the adult Benot Mitzvah class. We have 6 women in our congregation who are learning in order to become adult Benot Mitzvah, that they did not do so when they were kids. And every year or 2 years we have a new cohort. So this is our 2nd cohort since I've been here. And this particular screen I prepared during a session with them. So this is a teaching about the difference between chametz and matzah. So chametz is the word for leavened bread or leavened products, and matzah is, of course, our flat bread that we are permitted and even commanded to eat during Pesach. And then there are foods called kitniot, which I'll get to in a moment. So Pesach, or Passover, is this 7-day festival, although there are some people who celebrate for 8 days. Outside of the land of Israel, conservative and Orthodox Jews celebrate for an extra day because we are in the diaspora, and most Reform and Reconstructionist Jews observe 7 days so that we are all celebrating the same way in solidarity with those in Israel. So what is chametz? What is this leavened? We're told we're not supposed to eat leavened bread or leavened products. So what is chametz? So chametz is defined as grains plus water or any liquid and time. Time is important. That it must, if it is matzah, it must be under 18 minutes of time that this mixture is together. Otherwise, it's considered to be chametz after 18 minutes. By the way, if you've ever bought a box of matzah and it says not for Passover use, that's why. This is the matzah that has been made. I don't know if it's a mistake or if the companies actually try to make non-Passover matzah, which doesn't make much sense to me, but there you go. So what are the grains that are considered to be chametz? So one acronym that people use for this is brows, like our eyebrows. Brows stands for barley, rye, oats, wheat, and spelt. And I would add a Y there because it's not a grain, but yeast and leavening products are also avoided because of the fact that they are leavening products. So you might want to call it browsy, adding yeast and other baking soda, baking powder, and all of that. Okay, so brows are the grains. Now some of you may be saying, but what about rice? And what about corn? Or what about peas? Those are called kitniot, and those are legumes, rice, beans, corn, and the like. So some of you probably grew up with and are still observing that you do not eat these things, that you clean your kitchen if you do that, and you get rid of not only all of those grains I just mentioned, but also these kitniot. And you're saying, well, what about them? So traditionally, these were prohibited for Ashkenazim, Eastern European Jews, but permitted to Sephardim, Jews from Spain, Portugal, and so on. And this is because that it used to be in olden days that when grain silos stored various items together, there were bags, there were burlap sacks of barley or rye, and that might be next to a bag of rice or a bag of corn. And so if these things were next to each other, it wasn't a food processing plant. You know, that wasn't how things were done then. It wasn't so clear. And sometimes a grain of barley or of rye or oats might fall into a sack with rice or something else. So for Ashkenazi Jews, the rabbis said, oh, you know what, no more of any of this. We're adding all of that to the prohibited foods. For some reason, that never happened in Sephardic areas of the world, the areas in which Sephardic Jews lived. I don't know if they stored their grain differently or it was just a rabbinic understanding that was different, but they never had that custom. So Orthodox Jews still observe this way, and many of you may choose to observe this way because that's just what your family did and does, and you're not willing to let go of that, and that is perfectly fine, and that's your own choice. But I do want to let you know that many Reform and Reconstructionist homes have permitted kitniot for a long time, and until the last 5 years or so, the American conservative movement did not permit kitniot to be eaten for Ashkenazi Jews. But in 2016, the Rabbinical Assembly of the conservative movement ruled that the conservative Jews, that it's all okay for all Jews to eat and to keep kitniot in our homes during Pesach. So what was their reasoning? So what we choose to do in terms of rabbinic understandings when we try to explain how to make a choice is what's called values-based decision making. We look at the values underlying a certain decision. So the values that were underlying this, that the conservative movement looked at, and you can actually look online at the responsa, at the tshuva, the paper that was written by the Rabbinical Assembly in 2016, and you can actually see in detail those decisions and those rulings and why. It's very interesting, especially for lawyers who may be listening, because it goes into the intricacies of the law, of halakha, Jewish law. So why would those who permit it do it? Why would they allow it? So one value is called shmirat haguf, guarding or keeping the body and health. Or it's also called briut. When we say la briut, when someone sneezes, it means to your health. Another understanding is lo bashamayim hi. That's from Deuteronomy. It says the Torah is not in the heavens, that you have to go up to get it. Basically, that the Torah shouldn't be so hard to keep that you have to make it impossible for yourself. It should be practical and it should be accessible. So that's another reason. But the third, and I think most central reason why the Rabbinical Assembly decided to permit it, and why many Reform and Reconstructionist Jews Ashkenazi Jews do eat legumes, kitniot, during this time, is the value of Klal Yisrael. I mentioned before that some Jews have decided, myself included, and many Reform and Reconstructionist Jews have decided to keep only 7 days of Pesach. Not just because it's difficult, although it may be, but more importantly, because the 7 days is what they keep in Israel, and we want to have all of us be interconnected. In terms of the eating of kitniot, you can imagine that if a Sephardic family were to invite an Ashkenazi family over to their home to eat during Pesach, not even for the Seder, but even during just the Chol HaMoed, for a meal, that it would be very difficult for them to eat together. That if the Sephardic family decided to cook beans or rice, or even didn't cook them, but the dishes had been used for them, the Ashkenazi Jews would have to decline this invitation. And so we really don't want that to happen. We want all Jews to feel interconnected, and that is really a good reason why many of us have chosen to eat kitniot, even though we're Ashkenazi. I'm going to unshare this screen. So I'd like to share with you a little bit of a story. So one of my sons came to me and said, "Mom, this is just so difficult every year. It's so difficult not to eat chametz, to eat matzah for this whole time. Why do we do this? It seems like we're enslaving ourselves. We're enslaving our guts, which are churning because they are stuffed up with this matzah. And we can't eat this and we can't eat that. And we're a very pasta and pizza oriented family. So it's a really tough week for us." And I tried to explain that matzah is actually the bread of freedom. And why is that? Well, I'm going to share a little bit of a Kabbalistic understanding, and then I'll share a story. A Kabbalistic understanding is that the word matzah, which is spelled in Hebrew, mem, sadi, hey, is very close to the letters for chametz, which is spelled chet, mem, sadi. So if you don't know Hebrew, that's fine. Just take my word for it that they're the same letters except for one of them. In the word matzah, we have a hey at the end, which looks like this. It has an opening here. In the word chametz, it is a chet, which is closed off. So a Kabbalistic understanding is that when we are eating chametz, we are closed off. We are stuffed up with ourselves spiritually. We're arrogant and we're puffed up with pride. But matzah, with its opening of this hay, allows for the spiritual to flow in. That's one understanding. But I want to share with you a story that I found very moving. This is a story from 1943, and it's a true story. So it was 1943, and it was the beginning of Nisan, this month that begins on which Pesach occurs. And there were several people in Auschwitz, several of the men in Auschwitz, who were working in the kitchen. And they decided to do something very spiritually resistant. They decided they were going to make matzah. How were they going to do this? Right there. They would save up little bits of flour. Every day they had flour, Flour. They had flour, and they would put it together and really save it. And they were able to hoard this flour until right before Pesach, and then they made matzah. They made 5 matzot. And so one of the rabbis in the camp said we should have a minyan, 10 Jews, 10 Jewish men, and we should get them together, and they should be the ones that can eat this matzah. Only 10. And those 10 will pray for the souls and for the redemption of all of our people. But those 10 men have to agree that they eat no chametz for the entire time of Pesach. Now you have to understand that in Auschwitz, any little bit of food was, it was everything. They were eating so little. So this was a very, very big commitment. But they found 10 men who would do this. And each one of them only had a half of a matzah for the entire week. And because everything else basically was chametz or touching chametz, it was pretty much all that they ate for that entire week. And actually, when the 7th day was over, the rabbi begged all of these men to please eat regular chametz, eat whatever they could get their hands on, because they were dying. They were dying anyway. But to be doing all this physical labor with only this little bit of matzah that they had, that they rationed out day by day by day. But one of the men who survived this, one of these 10 men survived. And he told this story to his children and to his grandchildren. And he told him that even though it was all that they ate, and they prayed and prayed for redemption to come, and it didn't. And it didn't even till the next Pesach, where they tried to do it again, but it failed. The Nazis found them hoarding this flour. But even though all of those were true, the taste of that matzah was a taste of freedom. That they knew that spiritually, they could not be controlled. Spiritually, they didn't belong to the Nazis. They weren't just numbers. They were souls, Jewish souls, that were connected to Hashem, connected to God, and connected to Jews throughout history and throughout the world. And eating that matzah was that taste of eternity. So next time you eat matzah, tomorrow night, I invite you, when you let it touch your tongue, to think about those men and to think about all the people throughout time who have tasted that as the taste of freedom. Shabbat Shalom. We continue now as we turn to the Aleinu prayer, page 586. And we rise, those who are able to do so, please rise as we turn to page 586 for the Aleinu.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר ראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
It is hard to sing of oneness when our world is not complete. This week especially, we think of the shattering of our world, as twice in 1 week we saw the mass murder of innocent people in our country. And our hearts go out and they are broken by this horrific act, by both of these acts. And so for all of those who have succumbed to terror and violence, we think of you at this time. And we also, of course, think of all of those who have succumbed to COVID. We hope we've turned a corner now, but we still have over 500,000 people who have died in our country. So our hearts go out to them as well. And this week, we also think of those whose yahrzeits, the anniversary of their passing, occur at this time. Those whose names are on the plaques surrounding our sanctuary: Jeremiah Kaufman, Louis C. Cohen, Ruth Davidson, Jerome DeBrowner, Mildred Fisher, Nelson M. Gandelman, Frank J. Garin, Nathan Gerber, Richard Harris Goldstein, Diana Hall, Charles Hollander, Rose Jackler, Albert Japak, Rose Clarer, William Levine, Herman Menken, Jill Masafi, Muriel Miller, Pat Orr, William Pector, Herman K. Rabinow, Abraham Rosen, Barbara Siegel, Anne E. Silverman, Bessie Spilfogel, Margaret Treitel, Morris Waldman, and Francis Weintraub. Others recalled at this time: Renee Altervain, Edward Altus, Otto Burko, Ralph Cohen, Jill Davis, Louis Kramer, Sadie Lefkowitz, Barbara Nadell, Louis Ripner, Buddy Robbins, and Harriet Shangold. Others whose deaths are more recent: Simon Breitman, Marcia DeVasto, and Paulette Karen. If I have not said the name of someone you are thinking of at this time, please say their name aloud now. And I will add the name of my cousin, whose yahrzeit is tomorrow night on the first night of Pesach, Rachel McMillan. And so for all of those whom we have named, and all of those who were murdered by the Nazis during the Shoah, we rise in solidarity with mourners everywhere as we recite the Mourner's Kaddish on page 598. Yitgadal v'yitgadash Shemei Rabbah, be'alma divarach Yeruteh v'yamlich malchuteh, b'chayechon uvyomechon, uv'chayeh d'chol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman kari v'imru, amen. Yehi shemei rabam v'vorach le'olam ulal me'al maya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei dekudasha brichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbachata v'nechamata. Da'miram ba'ama v'imru, amen. Yehi shalom rabba min shemaya. V'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru, amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us, to all Israel, and to all who mourn among us and in all communities of the world. And let us say, amen. Please take a seat. And I want to invite you all to join Cantor Jake and myself tomorrow night at 5:30 for our Zoom Pesach Seder, our second annual and perhaps, God willing, our final our final virtual Seder. God willing, next year will be in person. Maybe we'll have a virtual component for those who aren't able to join us, but hopefully this is our final only virtual Seder. So please join us. We're going to have a lot of fun tomorrow night. So, Cantor Jake, can you give us a little taste of what we might experience tomorrow night if we come?
Absolutely, Rabbi Aviva. So if you want to get this taste, this little appetizer here, page 665. You might be familiar with this one. When Israel was in Egypt's land, let my people go. Oppressed so hard they could not stand. Let my people go. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt's land. Tell old Pharaoh, let my people go. When Israel was in Egypt's land, let my people go. Oppressed so hard they could not stand, let my people go. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt's land. Tell old Pharaoh, let my people go. Thus said the Lord, bold Moses said, let my people go. If not, I'll smite your firstborn dead. Let my people go. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt's land. Tell old Pharaoh, let my people go. Tell old Pharaoh, let my people go. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Hope to see you tomorrow night and to be able to say Shabbat Shalom and actually see you. Take care. Shabbat Shalom.